The last line. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge of the Phoenix, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing Earth's devastated coastlines. 3 months had passed since the Kraxen arrived, their crystalline ships descending from the stars like shards of broken glass. They hadn't bothered with negotiations or demands. They simply started erasing cities. Engineering reports quantum core at full capacity. Captain, Lieutenant Marcus Rivera announced from his station, his voice steady despite the weight of their mission. We're ready. Sarah nodded, her fingers brushing against the smooth surface of her command console. The Phoenix was humanity's best-kept secret, a warship built not just with reverse-engineered alien tech, but with innovations the Kraxen couldn't imagine. While they'd been systematically destroying Earth's visible military installations, they'd missed the underground facility where the Phoenix was born. Status report on the Kraxen fleet, Sarah asked, her dark eyes scanning the tactical display. 17 capital ships in high orbit, Captain. Commander Yuki Tanaka replied from the tactical station. Their energy signatures suggest they're preparing for another bombardment run. Target appears to be the remnants of the Asian defense grid. Sarah's jaw tightened. The defense grid was one of humanity's last functioning military installations. More importantly, it protected millions of civilians in underground shelters. The Kraxen thought they were being thorough, methodical in their destruction. They believed their superior technology made them invincible. They were wrong. All hands, battle stations, Sarah commanded, her voice carrying through the ship's communication system. Initiate quantum phase shift. The Phoenix hummed to life, its revolutionary engines spinning up. Most of the crew of 300 were veterans of Earth's Space Force, chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to adapt to the impossible. They'd need that adaptability today. Phase shift engage, Marcus reported as reality began to blur around them. We're operating at 40% out of sync with normal spacetime. This was humanity's true secret weapon. While the Kraxen had been bombarding Earth's cities, human scientists had been studying the fundamental nature of reality itself. The Phoenix didn't just use technology, it bent the rules of physics. Tactical, confirmed targeting solutions for all Kraxen vessels, Sarah ordered, watching as the holographic display updated with new information. Prioritize their command ship. The massive Kraxen vessels hung in orbit like predators, their crystalline structures refracting sunlight in ways that would have been beautiful if not for their deadly purpose. They had no idea that their prey had evolved. Multiple targeting solutions confirmed, Yuki responded. Quantum torpedoes locked on their power cores. We'll only get one shot at this, Captain. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. That's all we'll need. The Kraxen think they know humanity's capabilities. They think they've seen everything we can do. But they've never seen anything like the Phoenix. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, each member knowing that history itself hinged on their actions in the next few minutes. The Phoenix glided through space like a ghost, visible only to the specialized sensors they'd developed. Enemy fleet holding position, Yuki reported. Their weapons are charging. Bombardment of the defense grid will commence in approximately 3 minutes. Not today, Sarah said, her voice hard with determination. Bring us into optimal firing position. Prepare to execute attack pattern Omega on my mark. The Phoenix moved silently through the void, its quantum-shifted state allowing it to pass through the Kraxen's defensive screen, as if it weren't there. They positioned themselves at the heart of the enemy fleet, surrounded by ships that couldn't detect them. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. The Kraxen had struck first, believing they were dealing with a primitive species that would quickly fall. They were about to learn how badly they'd underestimated human ingenuity. All weapons systems ready, Yuki announced. Quantum torpedoes armed and tracking. We have clean shots on all targets. Sarah stood from her command chair, her posture straight and proud. Send this message on all frequencies. You should have asked for our surrender. Now you'll learn why humanity never gives up. The bridge fell silent, every crew member poised for action. The Kraxan ships loomed around them, their crystalline hulls gleaming with deadly purpose. But today, the hunters would become the hunted. Execute attack pattern Omega, Sarah commanded. Show them what humanity can do. The Phoenix's quantum torpedoes launched simultaneously, each one phasing into normal space at the exact moment of impact. The Kraxan never saw them coming. Their mighty ships, built to withstand any conventional attack, were helpless against weapons that bypassed their defenses entirely. The first explosions bloomed in silence, beautiful and terrible. The beginning of humanity's counterattack had begun. Silent strike. The void of space erupted in a cascade of crystal and light as the first Kraxan ships shattered. Their once impenetrable hulls splintered like glass, fragments spinning outward in deadly beautiful patterns. But Sarah knew better than to celebrate too early. Multiple detonations confirmed, Yuki reported, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. 3 capital ships completely disabled. The others are beginning to react. The remaining Kraxan vessels were moving now, their formation shifting like a startled flock of birds. Their crystalline structures pulsed with energy as they tried to locate their invisible attacker. They're activating their neural link, Marcus warned from his station. The hive mind is attempting to coordinate a response. This was the moment Sarah had been waiting for. The Kraxan's greatest strength, their interconnected consciousness that allowed their fleet to act as one, was about to become their greatest weakness. Execute Phase 2, she ordered. Deploy the quantum virus. The Phoenix's computers hummed as they launched their second weapon, not a physical attack, but a cascade of corrupted data designed to infiltrate the Kraxan's neural network. They had developed it by studying the remains of fallen Kraxan ships, understanding how their shared consciousness worked. Virus deployed, Marcus confirmed. It's penetrating their network. They're trying to adapt, but they can't isolate it fast enough. Sarah watched as confusion spread through the enemy fleet. The Kraxan ships began moving erratically, their coordinated defense falling apart as the virus corrupted their shared neural pathways. They had never encountered an attack like this, couldn't even conceive of a species capable of turning their own technology against them. Captain, detecting massive energy spike from the Kraxan command ship, Yuki called out. They're charging their main weapon array. Maintain quantum phase, Sarah commanded. Let them waste their energy. The Kraxan flagship unleashed a devastating beam of concentrated energy, powerful enough to slice through a planet's crust. But the Phoenix, still partially out of phase with normal spacetime, let the attack pass through harmlessly. They're panicking, Commander Tanaka observed, a note of satisfaction in her voice. Their attacks are becoming desperate, uncoordinated. Sarah nodded grimly. That's because they've never had to fight alone before. Each ship's crew is isolated, cut off from the hive mind. They're experiencing individual thought for the first time in their lives. The Phoenix moved through the chaos like a predator, picking off vulnerable targets. Each quantum torpedo found its mark with surgical precision, guided by targeting systems that could track ships through multiple dimensions of spacetime. Enemy vessels attempting to regroup, Yuki reported. They're falling back to defensive positions around their command ship. Perfect, Sarah said, allowing herself a small smile. That's exactly where we want them. Engineering, prepare to execute the quantum resonance pulse. This would be the riskiest part of their attack. The resonance pulse would briefly force the Phoenix back into normal space, making them visible to the enemy. But if it worked, the pulse would amplify the effects of their virus exponentially. All hands, brace for temporal shock, Sarah announced shipwide. This is going to get rough. The crew secured themselves as the Phoenix's quantum core began to spin up to maximum power. They could feel the vibrations through the deck plates, the boundary between normal space and their phase-shifted state growing increasingly unstable. Resonance pulse charged to maximum capacity, Marcus reported, his voice tense. Ready on your command, Captain. Sarah took a deep breath. her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The remaining Kraxan ships had formed a tight defensive sphere around their command vessel, their weapons pointing outward in all directions. They were prepared for an attack from any angle in normal space. But the Phoenix wasn't limited to normal space. "Execute resonance pulse," Sarah ordered. "Let's show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." The quantum core released its built-up energy in a single devastating burst. For a fraction of a second, reality itself seemed to ripple around them. The Phoenix flickered into normal space just long enough to be seen. A sleek, dark shape amid the crystalline Kraxan vessels. The pulse struck the enemy fleet like a tsunami, amplifying the quantum virus's effects 1,000-fold. The neural network that connected their ships didn't just break, it shattered. Decades of shared consciousness, of thinking and acting as one entity, were ripped apart in an instant. Direct hits confirmed on all targets, Yuki reported, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. The virus is spreading through their entire command structure. Their neural network is collapsing. Sarah watched as the mighty Kraxan fleet began to fall apart. Without their shared consciousness, without the ability to coordinate their actions perfectly, they were reduced to individual ships trying to fight an enemy they barely understood. "Status report on the quantum core," she called out. "Core is stable," Marcus responded. "Phase shift holding at 30%. We can maintain this state for another hour if needed." Sarah nodded, but she knew they wouldn't need an hour. The Kraxan were already beaten. They just didn't know it yet. Their mighty fleet, which had terrorized Earth for months, was about to learn a lesson about the true nature of humanity's strength. "Prepare for final attack run," she ordered. "Target their command ship. It's time to end this." Turning point. The Kraxan command ship hung in space like a wounded predator, its crystalline surface no longer gleaming with confidence, but crackling with desperate energy. Around it, the remnants of their once mighty fleet drifted in disarray, each vessel now fighting its own isolated battle against an enemy they couldn't properly see or understand. "Their command ship is attempting to re-establish the neural network," Marcus reported, his eyes fixed on the engineering displays. "They're trying to rebuild their hive mind." Sarah leaned forward in her command chair. "Let them try. Every attempt just spreads our virus further into their systems." She turned to Yuki. "Status of their defensive capabilities." "Their main shields are holding, but they're unstable," Yuki responded. "The virus has compromised their ability to maintain consistent power distribution. They're vulnerable." The Phoenix glided through the debris field of destroyed Kraxan vessels, each crystalline fragment a testament to humanity's unexpected resistance. Sarah felt no joy in the destruction, only grim satisfaction that Earth finally had a fighting chance. "Captain," Commander Tanaka called out suddenly, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the command ship. They're powering up their dimensional drive." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "They're trying to escape." She stood from her chair, moving to the tactical display. "Not this time. Not after what they did to Earth." The Kraxan command ship's surface began to pulse with brilliant light, the precursor to a dimensional jump that would take them safely away from the battle. But Sarah had anticipated this possibility. The Phoenix hadn't just been built to fight. It had been built to hunt. "Engineering, initiate quantum tether," she ordered. "Lock them into normal space." The Phoenix's quantum core hummed as it generated a field that would prevent the Kraxan vessel from shifting dimensions. It was like casting a net made of reality itself, trapping the larger ship in place. "Quantum tether engaged," Marcus confirmed. "They're not going anywhere, Captain." The command ship's attempts to escape grew more desperate. Beams of energy lashed out randomly through space, hoping to hit their invisible attacker. But the Phoenix, still partially phase-shifted, easily avoided the wild attacks. "They're broadcasting something," Yuki announced. It's a transmission, directed at us." Sarah straightened. "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with a voice that seemed to exist somewhere between organic and synthetic, the collective consciousness of the Kraxan command ship struggling to communicate as individuals. Human vessel, the voice grated, you have violated the natural order. Your species was meant to be cleansed, your potential for chaos eliminated before it could spread. Sarah's response was cold and clear. The natural order. You attacked a peaceful world without provocation. You murdered millions, and now you're surprised we fought back. You do not understand. The Kraxan voice insisted. Your species' individual minds, your creativity, it is a disease that must be contained. The galaxy requires unity, singular purpose. No, Sarah countered. You're the ones who don't understand. Our individuality, our chaos as you call it, that's our strength. You thought crushing our cities would break us. Instead, it forced us to innovate, to think in ways you never could. The Phoenix's sensors detected more power fluctuations from the command ship. They were trying to find a way out, trying to comprehend how their perfect plan had gone so wrong. Tactical, Sarah ordered. Prepare the final attack sequence. Target their primary power core. Captain, Marcus interrupted. They're charging their main weapon array again. Energy readings are off the scale. They're overloading their systems. Sarah understood immediately. They're going to try to take us with them. Divert all available power to the quantum phase generators. Push us to maximum out-of-phase state. The Phoenix's engines screamed as they pushed the ship further out of sync with normal space than they'd ever attempted before. The view through the bridge windows became distorted, reality itself seeming to bend around them. Phase shift at 60%. Marcus called out, his voice strained. 65, 70%. The Kraxan command ship began to glow with building energy, its crystalline structure vibrating at frequencies that threatened to tear it apart. They were willing to destroy themselves rather than accept defeat. Quantum torpedoes locked on target, Yuki reported. But at this phase shift level, we don't know if they'll maintain cohesion long enough to impact. Sarah gripped the edges of her command console. That's exactly what we want them to think. Execute attack pattern Lambda. Show them humanity's final surprise. The Phoenix launched its weapons, not directly at the Kraxan ship, but in a complex pattern around it. The torpedoes, instead of being fully phase-shifted, were cycling through different states of reality at precisely calculated intervals. The Kraxan's defenses, designed to stop weapons that existed in normal space, were useless against attacks that rippled through multiple phases of reality simultaneously. The torpedoes pierced their shields as if they weren't there, each one finding its mark with devastating precision. Direct hits confirmed, Yuki announced as explosions began to bloom across the command ship's surface. Their power core is destabilizing. Sarah watched as humanity's greatest enemy began to break apart, their mighty vessel succumbing not to brute force, but to the very chaos and creativity they had feared. Chained reaction. The Kraxan command ship's destruction was unlike anything the Phoenix's crew had ever witnessed. As its quantum-phased core began to collapse, reality itself seemed to warp around the massive vessel. Crystalline fragments scattered across space, each piece refracting light in impossible ways as it phased between dimensions. Multiple secondary explosions detected, Yuki reported, her voice steady despite the spectacular destruction unfolding before them. The quantum cascade is spreading to their support vessels. Sarah watched the tactical display intently. The death of the command ship wasn't just a physical destruction. It was unraveling the very foundation of the Kraxan fleet's neural network. Each explosion sent ripples of corrupted data through their connected consciousness. Engineering, status of our quantum core? Sarah asked, knowing they weren't out of danger yet. Marcus's fingers flew across his console, operating at 75% capacity, Captain. The phase shift is stable, but we're detecting unusual temporal distortions from the Kraxan wreckage. The remaining Kraxan ships were being torn apart from within. Their shared consciousness, already damaged by the quantum virus, was now experiencing the death throes of their command center. It was like watching 1,000 minds try to process their own destruction simultaneously. Captain, Commander Tanaka called out urgently. "We're picking up something strange. The Kraxan wreckage. It's not just destroying itself. It's evolving." Sarah moved to the science station, her eyes narrowing at the readings. The quantum energies released by the command ship's destruction were interacting with the virus they had planted in ways they hadn't anticipated. The Kraxan's neural network wasn't just breaking down, it was transforming. "Their consciousness is fragmenting," Yuki observed, "but not all of it is being destroyed. Some of the Kraxan are individualizing." The tactical display showed it clearly now. While many of the enemy ships were being consumed by the cascade of destruction, others were somehow adapting. Their crystalline structures were changing, becoming less uniform, more unique. "They're breaking free from the hive mind," Sarah realized. "Our virus didn't just corrupt their network, it's giving them individual consciousness." The bridge crew watched in amazement as several Kraxan vessels began moving independently, their formations no longer the perfect geometric patterns they had maintained before. Each ship was now acting on its own, making individual decisions for the first time in their species' history. "We're receiving transmissions," Marcus announced. "Multiple signals, all different frequencies. They're trying to communicate separately." Sarah straightened. This wasn't just a military victory anymore. It was something far more profound. "Put them through. Let's hear what individual Kraxans sound like." The bridge speakers came alive with a cascade of voices, each one distinct and unique. Gone was the synthetic uniformity of the hive mind, replaced by genuine individual consciousness. Some voices expressed confusion, others fear, and a few, remarkably, curiosity. "Human vessel," one voice called out, clearer than the others. "What have you done to us?" I can think. Alone. It's overwhelming." "You've been given something your leaders tried to destroy," Sarah responded. "The same thing they feared in humanity. Individuality. The ability to think for yourself, to make your own choices." Another voice joined in, this one filled with something that sounded like wonder. "The silence. The others are gone from my mind. But I can still think, still function. How is this possible?" "That's what makes consciousness so remarkable," Sarah said. "It doesn't need to be shared to be powerful. Sometimes it's stronger when it stands alone." The Phoenix maintained its defensive posture, but Sarah could see that the threat was transforming into something else entirely. The Kraxan ships that had survived the quantum cascade were no longer attacking. They were exploring their newfound independence, each crew discovering what it meant to think and act as individuals. "Captain," Yuki reported, "the surviving Kraxan vessels are powering down their weapons. They're forming a new formation, but it's different. Organic. Voluntary." Sarah nodded. "They're choosing to work together, not being forced to by the neural network. That's the difference between cooperation and control." The space around them had become a graveyard of crystalline fragments, the remains of those Kraxan ships that couldn't survive the separation from the hive mind. But among the destruction, something new was emerging, the birth of individual consciousness in a species that had never known it. "Send this message to all surviving Kraxan vessels," Sarah ordered. "Your empire tried to destroy humanity because they feared our chaos, our creativity, our individuality. Now you have the chance to experience these things for yourselves. The choice of what to do with that freedom is yours." The responses came in one by one, each voice unique, each message a testament to the power of individual thought. Some expressed gratitude, others uncertainty, and a few even offered apologies for their part in the attack on Earth. "Captain," Marcus called out, his voice tight with emotion, "what do we do now? This isn't how we expected the battle to end." Sarah looked out at the transformed battlefield, where enemies were becoming something else entirely, perhaps even allies. "No, it's not," she agreed. "It's better. We didn't just win a war today. We helped create something new." The Phoenix held its position as the surviving Kraxan ships began to organize themselves, not as a hive mind, but as a community of individual vessels. It was a sight no human had ever expected to see, the birth of freedom in a species that had never known it existed. Dawn of Retribution. 2 weeks after the battle that changed everything, the Phoenix hovered in high Earth orbit. Below them, the planet still bore the scars of the Kraxan invasion. Cratered cities and scarred continents visible even from space. But now, something remarkable was happening in those same ruins. Recovery teams report another successful collaboration. Captain, Commander Tanaka announced, reviewing the latest updates from the surface. The individualized Kraxan are actually helping us rebuild. Their crystal tech is accelerating the restoration of our infrastructure. Sarah stood at the viewport, watching as several crystalline ships worked alongside human vessels, using their advanced technology to help repair what their former hive mind had tried to destroy. The irony wasn't lost on her. Who would have thought, she mused, that our greatest weapon would turn out to be giving our enemies free will? The latest reports from the Kraxan ships are fascinating. Marcus added from his station. Their crystalline technology is evolving, adapting to their new individual states. Each ship is becoming unique, just like their consciousness. The transformation of the Kraxan had been more complete than anyone could have predicted. Without the controlling influence of their hive mind, each ship and crew had developed its own personality, its own way of thinking. Some remained distant, struggling to cope with their newfound individuality. Others had embraced it completely, eager to learn and understand the species they had once tried to destroy. Message coming in from the surface, Yuki announced. It's Admiral Chen. She's requesting your presence at the first official Human Kraxan Cooperation Summit. Sarah smiled slightly. Her mother had always told her that true victory wasn't about destroying your enemies. It was about making them into friends. She'd never quite believed it until now. Tell them I'll be there, she responded. The Phoenix still has a role to play in all this. The ship's quantum core hummed softly, a reminder of how far humanity had come. They had taken the Kraxan's attack and turned it into an opportunity, not just for survival, but for advancement beyond anything they had imagined. Captain, Marcus called out, his voice carrying a note of excitement. The quantum core analysis is complete. The data we gathered from the battle. It's revolutionary. The way the virus interacted with their neural network, it's opened up entirely new possibilities for quantum physics. Sarah moved to his station, examining the readings. The destruction of the Kraxan command ship had created ripples in reality itself, showing them aspects of quantum mechanics they had never dreamed possible. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had evolved. The remaining Kraxan ships are requesting permission to establish permanent diplomatic stations in Earth orbit, Commander Tanaka reported. They want to learn from us, understand how we think, how we innovate. To think, Yuki added with a slight smile. They invaded because they feared our chaos, our creativity. Now they want to embrace it. Sarah returned to her command chair, feeling the weight of the future settling around them. Humanity has always been at its best when faced with the impossible. We don't just survive. We adapt, we grow, we transform. And now we shared that gift with another species. The tactical display showed dozens of Kraxan ships, each one now operating independently, each one choosing to stay and help rebuild what their former collective had tried to destroy. It was a sight that would have been impossible to imagine just weeks ago. Message from the surface teams, Marcus announced. The first restored city grid is online. They're using a hybrid of human and Kraxan technology. It's more efficient than either system alone. Sarah nodded, pride swelling in her chest. This was humanity's true victory, not the destruction of an enemy, but the creation of something new, something better. Set course for the summit, she ordered. It's time to show both our peoples what the future can look like when we choose to face it together. As the Phoenix descended toward Earth, Sarah thought about everything that had led to this moment. The Kraxan had struck first, believing they were dealing with a primitive species that needed to be eliminated. Instead, they had encountered humanity's greatest strength, the ability to turn disaster into opportunity, to find hope in despair, to create light in darkness. The ship broke through the atmosphere, the once devastating scars of battle now becoming sites of reconstruction and renewal. Crystal tech merged with human innovation, creating structures that seemed to defy physics itself. It was beautiful in its own way, the physical manifestation of two species learning to work together. "You know," Commander Tanaka said quietly, "they'll write about this in history books. The day humanity didn't just fight back. We changed an entire civilization." Sarah watched as they approached the summit location, where human and Kraxan representatives waited to forge a new future together. "No," she corrected gently. "We did something even more important. We showed the galaxy that the thing you fear most might be exactly what you need to become better." The Phoenix landed softly, its quantum core pulsing one final time. As if in agreement, they had won not just a battle, but a future, one where humanity's chaos and creativity wouldn't be feared, but celebrated as the force of change it had always been. Humanity had been struck first, but they had responded not just with force, but with transformation. And in doing so, they had proven that their greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their ability to change the very nature of their enemy into something better, something free.